The Step Pyramid of Djoser was built using a hydraulic lift. Dated to about 4,500 years ago, this would move up the introduction of major hydraulic systems from previous beliefs. The landscape, waterways, and interior architecture of the pyramid all point to the hydraulic system. So this makes me think of the Central and South American nations that we have talked about with the Amazon. Hello, Inspired Earth. I'm glad to be here, and sorry it's been a little bit. I had a super crazy couple of weeks. I'm sure that we all did. There's so many things that have happened since I last put out an episode. It's like, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. But we had, obviously the Trump situation occurred, and then Biden stepped down after that, so we've had a lot going on as in the political realm of the election and the campaigns. And I'm not going to go too much into that. I'll just say that, I'm glad that Trump survived, even though I don't agree with the majority of his politics. But it's important for him to be held accountable, and he can continue to go to court, and the whole nation can see what the evidence is, if it's true, if it's not, if it's fake, then it'll all fall through in court. A lot of this stuff has fallen through with court, even regardless of the evidence being shown, and they didn't even get a chance to show the evidence. So hopefully we will see some more evidence, and he didn't go down as a martyr, somebody that will just be saluted forever regardless of their actions. He's still alive. He can still be held accountable for his actions. So that's how I feel about it, that if he truly did all of these crimes, then he should be held accountable for them. As well, some stuff came out about Biden. I don't know if that's why he dropped out, but I don't know why more people are not talking about the stuff that came out about Biden. I don't even think I want to talk about it. We'll just see if it comes out on its own. But yeah, that's enough about the election. I'm sure that we're all over that anyway. So on to the more at hand type of stuff for Inspired Earth. There was so many crazy things that have happened. I mean, I guess I'll talk about how I ended up not recording for a couple weeks. Was that the CrowdStrike event happened a week or two ago, and I was at work. I work a blue collar job, and it has a lot to do with data and stuff like that regardless. So, and I was at work when the CrowdStrike event happened, and it was like watching the end of the world occur. We have all of these TVs up on the wall, and each one you could see all of the servers going down, the list going down the screen, just bang, 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 going to red and like not responding. And I was turning and watching all of these different departments of this facility all going down one by one. And it's not usual for it to be that severe. It's not uncommon. It's not unheard of. We have had that sort of stuff happen before, but it seemed pretty severe. So I was like, geez, and then got on the phone and started just scrolling on the news, and the first thing that comes up immediately was that there was a global IT outage. And at the time, BBC said that they didn't know the cause. So for the first 10 to 15 minutes, all that I saw was that all the airports were going down, Visa was down, Microsoft was down, all of our systems were down. It was just across the board. And yeah, we didn't know that it was like an IT bug at that moment. At least BBC was not reporting that. And yeah, I looked at my coworkers and I was like, this could be it. This could be the the moment that the bombs are on the way or that there's a massive cyber attack. And it was a very surreal moment. It was like a dress rehearsal for the end of the world, basically. How everything can just be turned on its head in an instant, a flip of the switch, and everything that we thought was so real just is gone in an instant. And I asked my coworkers, do you see any deeper meaning to this? And they were like, yeah, it's kind of deep and interesting that, like I said, at a flip of a switch, everything can just come crashing down. And does that mean that society is real? Like those elements of society, is that even real if it can just be turned off in a switch and then it's gone? And we're all sitting there. There's nothing tangibly different, but all of the stock exchanges were down. Like the whole world came to a screeching halt, and it just kind of showed how much of an illusion everything is. And yet, the blue collar jobs of people that would need to go up and actually physically do stuff, none of that changed for us because that's real. That's actual real work that's being done versus this imaginary digital parasitic greed extraction that I would say that is like the global financial system. That's for another day though, but it really exposed how fragile our whole society is, not just from like a solar flare or a cyber attack or anything that could affect communications on that level. But luckily, it came back up in a couple hours. But for about 10 or 15 minutes, it was pretty intense until it started coming out that it was the CrowdStrike. That it was like a server bug. So after that occurred, they were giving out mandatory overtime to where I had to work like basically every day. Well, not every day, but I was working pretty much the majority of the week for sure. And then I'm also taking classes. I'm sure that you guys all went out and started trying to find some classes to take too. Like I had said in the last episode, I was challenging everybody to find something to learn, to go out and take a class. And if you want to email me or comment or tell me something that you've learned, I would be interested to know what you guys have learned in the past couple weeks, or anything that you've found out, and if you've gone into any classes or what your experiences were like. If you did go to any free classes, I would love to hear from you guys on what you've learned. But so I was taking classes, and the days off that I have, I'm doing classes 3 days a week for a short little 6-week class. And yeah, I was just wiped out. I mean, I had no time between. I was working at night and taking classes during the day, and like I said, it was mandatory. So yeah, I just didn't have any time for recording. But I'm glad to be back, and I could probably do a 6-hour segment on all the news that we missed. So I'm just gonna skim through some, and I'm only gonna read a couple to keep this one short, and then I will probably have to do some specialized episodes next week to try to catch up because there were so many different things that occurred in biology, archaeology, and then space news. We probably need an episode in each one of those to catch up, even if it's just like like 30 minutes to an hour each to talk about those. But that would probably be good. And as well, to go back onto the disaster topic that I had mentioned last episode, the disaster movies, I would like as well if you could share your experiences and facts that you've learned in the past couple weeks, or comment or email, but also to put in there what disaster movies you see occurring in real time. And I think I mentioned several in the past. Well, we could add the core into it. The Earth. They just recently said that the center of the Earth had reversed course. the like inside of the earth reversed course apparently. So that's a plot of a movie, but as well, we had all these massive earthquakes going on, and we have the new movie Twister coming out. So there's just so many, it's hard to even put them all together, but it would be interesting if we could compile a list of all the ongoing disaster films that are playing out in real time, because it's staggering whenever you really look at it. And it's not to get pessimistic about it. It's one of those things that, again, is a dialectic process that you have to look at both sides of it, that it's going to be bad and good, and that all of these different things compiling onto one another and compounding on each other is going to make it to where there's a whole new world coming, regardless of whether we want it or not. There's change coming, so we have to seize it, and we have to move on and try to shape it into our form that we want it, because it's going to change no matter what. With all of these things coming, that's what I'm showing you guys, is that change is coming regardless. So let's talk about the earthquakes, and that Texas had a bunch of earthquakes. We had 103 earthquakes, and Scurry County in West Texas declared a state of emergency after more than 100 earthquakes rocked the area. And one of them was a 5.1, which is pretty severe. So on the same day that occurred, well, on some of these, I think there was 11 earthquakes in one day. And on that same day, we had the St. Louis, Missouri area National Guard troops doing a earthquake drill, which got reported on pretty well. And then the Yellowstone geyser exploded. All on the same day, those three things occurred, which that kind of struck me as a little bit too much of a coincidence to have all three of those happen on the same day. But, you know, it could be a coincidence, could be absolutely nothing. But they say that three things is a pattern, so something to think about. And as well, last episode I talked about preparedness. And so depending on what area of the country or world you're in, because we have an international listenership, which thank you guys so much for listening. It means the world to me, especially coming back after a couple weeks off. But depending on what area of the world you are in, you need to think about what sorts of disasters occur in your area and how can you prepare for that on a budget, on whatever budget you're looking at, or whatever, however much you want to put into preparation. Because a little bit goes a long way. You don't have to become an ultra super prepper and spend tens of thousands of dollars on it, although some people do. The practicality of that is highly debated. So keeping it simple would probably be best, especially at the beginning. So what disasters could occur in your area is something that you might want to think about, especially because with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, this drill that I was talking about, they said 10% chance that the state will experience a magnitude 7 or higher earthquake in the next 50 years. This would be catastrophic, but there's an even better chance that the major quake could be 6 or higher, which would cause massive damage, and the estimate goes to 25% that Missouri will see a large quake in the next 30 years. So that's what they said that they're doing, and it's good to not only have a plan in place, but drills and practice to see what response to an earthquake might be like. They end the article with, "A real disaster could happen with no warning and change our lives forever." And then we have the return of the stoned ape theory, that we have more studies coming out on that, and that Terrence McKenna had talked about this a long time ago. He kind of got laughed at, but here we are with more studies and scientists coming out saying that they're talking about it. So I'm not going to read this one. I might read it another time, but I just wanted to mention that stoned ape theory has come back up again. And this is another like cyclical topic that I talked about, cyclical topics before, that these things will just percolate around and go in circles until eventually, I guess, somebody makes a breakthrough. And another one here, brain activity in dying patients does not indicate consciousness. They were taking measurements of energy readings of the brain of people with epilepsy, and they were comatose but having gamma wave bursts, which is one of the highest waves of brain activity. So it's really strange that they would say that this very high consciousness brain function is not tied to consciousness. I feel like they're going to flip-flop on that again. Speaking of flip-flop, I don't even have the article pulled up, but I just reminded myself on that. We've talked about Venus, flying life, at least 2 or 3 times. They flip-flopped again, and they've released 2 more articles talking about microbes and elemental chemical type things that they're detecting in the atmosphere of Venus that they think could be Venusian life. So that's really interesting. I have another flip-flop on that one. I feel like it's every other week that they come out and say, oh, Venus has life, and then they say, oh no, never mind, we changed our mind, and then they change their mind again the next week, and apparently they've doubled down on it. So yeah, we'll probably talk about that another time. Probably come up again. I'm just skimming through some headlines. Okay, so we've skimmed through some of them, and this is one of the first articles that we will actually read, and it's from July 24th, Interesting Engineering. We gotta love those guys. Their subscription's only $1, so if you wanted to do that, you also get audio stuff with them. But in a first, forever chemicals decomposed using light at room temperature. The new method can be used to decompose PFAS at room temperature using visible LED light. Researchers have developed a promising new method which uses light to clean up forever chemicals at room temperature. A lot of the processes to clean up PFAS require all these different extreme temperatures or a lot of power or one thing or another, so it's good to have more and more simpler ways to try to reduce it without having all these difficult processes. The method to decompose PFAS using visible LED light offers a promising solution for sustainable fluorine recycling and PFAS treatment. The method can be used to recover fluorine from water waste, PFAS, reducing the need for new fluorine production. The research was carried out by a team from the Ritsumeikan University, Japan, which was led by Professor Yaochoi Kobayashi. The problems posed by forever chemicals. PFAS, which are also called forever chemicals, are a growing environmental and health threat. Since the invention of Teflon in 1938, PFAS have been used extensively around the world for their stability and resistance to heat and water. They are used in countless applications, ranging from cookware and clothing to firefighting foam. However, the stability also poses an ecological challenge as the forever chemicals refuse to break down and accumulate in water, soil, and even animal bodies. In humans, they have been known to cause carcinogenic effects and hormonal disruption. To decompose the forever chemicals, temperatures exceeding 752 Fahrenheit or 400 Celsius are needed, which is rather challenging to achieve. Therefore, the new method is a path-breaking one, as it can be used to decompose PFAS at room temperature using visible LED light. Researchers have achieved 100% breakdown of perfluoctane sulfonate, a type of PFAS, in just 8 hours, and an 81% breakdown of niaphon, a fluoropolymer, in 24 hours, according to the press release by Ritsumeikan University. The study details a photocatalytic method that uses visible light to break down PFAS and other fluorinated polymers. at room temperature into fluorine ions. So it sounds like they're going to try to recycle the fluorine after they get it, which is pretty genius. The method involves irradiating visible LED light onto cadmium sulfide nanocrystals and copper-doped nanocrystals with surface ligands of mercaptatopropionic acid and a solution containing PFAS, FPs, and triphenyllamine. The researchers found that irradiating these semiconductor nanocrystals generates electrons with a high reduction potential that can break down the strong carbon-fluorine bonds in PFAS molecules. For the photocatalytic reaction, the researchers added nanocrystals and some other stuff into 1 milliliter of water. They then exposed the solution to 405 nanometer LED light to initiate the photocatalytic reaction. And they have an infographic here for anybody that wants to go in. I'll also link it if you want to go and read it. These are just, they're going through like a chemistry equation in that sentence, and it's going to be a long, long sentence. The light excites the nanoparticles, generating electron-hole pairs and promoting the removal of MPa ligands from the surface of nanocrystals, creating space for PFAS, in that one, molecules to absorb onto the NC surface. To prevent photoexcited electrons from recombining with the holes, TEOA is added to capture the holes and prolong the lifetime of the reactive electrons available for PFAS decomposition. PFAS. These electrons undergo Auger recombination processes, where one exciton, an electron hole pair, recombines non-radiatively, transferring its energy to another electron and creating highly excited electrons. That is a lot of that's kind of gibberish. Basically, they're like extending the life of the stuff that they're putting in there, and they were able to do it to the point where they got it very efficient. The defluorination efficiency, depending on the amount of NCs and TEOA used in the reaction, and increases with the period of light exposure. The proposed methodology is promising for the effective decomposition of diverse perfluoroalkyl substances under gentle conditions, thereby significantly contributing toward the establishment of sustainable fluorine recycling society. This technique will contribute to the development of recycling technologies for fluorine elements, which are used in various industries and support our prosperous society. It's a really interesting idea to recycle the fluorine. So then we're going to move on to engineers found evidence of hydraulics in an ancient pyramid, solving a 4,500-year-old mystery. See how Egyptian engineers might have used water to shape history's greatest monuments. A new study suggests the first of 7 key pyramids in Egypt, the Step Pyramid of Djoser, was built using a hydraulic lift. Dated to about 4,500 years ago, this would move up the introduction of major hydraulic systems from previous beliefs. The landscape, waterways, and interior architecture of the pyramid all point to the hydraulic system. So this makes me think of the Central and South American nations that we have talked about with the Amazon, and even the mysterious one that they don't even have a name for, that we read about them using radar and LiDAR to find out that they have moats and this waterway system. Perhaps they're doing the exact same thing as this. I mean, if they're using hydraulics. It sounds like both civilizations were actually really using similar types of things, potentially. Hydraulic mechanics may have indeed been the driving force behind the construction of ancient Egyptian pyramids. In a recent preprint paper, scientists concluded that the Step Pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara, Egypt, believed to be the oldest of the 7 monumental pyramids and potentially constructed about 4,500 years ago, offers a remarkable blueprint for hydraulic engineering. The hydraulic-powered mechanism could have maneuvered the oversized stone blocks forming the pyramid, starting from the ground up. The research team says the Steps Pyramid's internal architecture is consistent with a hydraulic elevation mechanism, something that's never been reported before at that place or in that time. By lifting the stones from the interior of the pyramid in what the authors call a volcano fashion, the water pressure from the hydraulic system could have pushed the blocks into place. If proved out, this research shows that Egyptians had a powerful understanding of advanced hydraulic systems well before modern scholars believed they did. That begs the question, was this the first major use of the system, or had it been in play previously? So it's funny how even popular mechanics, they immediately say, could this have been used in the past, even further back? Were these the first people to invent this, or did they get the idea from somebody else? And I feel like they probably got the idea from somebody else. And that's not to be sacrilegious or like it's just take anything away from the Egyptians or anybody else. It's just, I'm sure somebody did invent it for the first time somewhere, but that's going to be like nearly impossible to prove. But what the main point is that the time period keeps on getting pushed back further and further and further. And I feel like eventually we will run into a point where we basically run into the Ice Age, right? Of what happened before the Ice Age. And should we ever get any sort of evidence before that, perhaps there was other civilizations, and that the rise and fall of civilization can happen really rapidly. So maybe it's not, maybe it is, but I feel like having an open mind to that shouldn't make anybody offended or be controversial, but it is. So yeah, that's why I always try to come to this with respect, especially for the native people, because I don't want to be disrespectful. I value this a whole lot. So I'm sure everybody else here is coming from that standpoint, but we have to make sure that that's like the narrative that's being told so that other people can't say that it's something else. So with that in mind, we'll keep on reading. But no matter the answer, pulling it off at the Step Pyramid would have been no easy feat. The team believes that based on the mapping of nearby watersheds, one of the massive and yet unexplained Saqqara structures known as the Gizr el Madir enclosure has the features of a check dam with the intent to trap sediment and water. The scientists say that topography beyond the dam suggests a possible temporary lake west of the Djoser complex, with water flow surrounding it in a moat-like design. As a Nile tributary fed the area, a dam could have created a temporary lake, potentially linking the river to a dry moat around the Djoser site, helping move material and serving the hydraulic needs. The ancient architects likely raised the stones from the pyramid center in a volcano fashion, using sediment-free water from dry moat's south section. In one section of the moat, the team found that a monumental linear rock-cut structure consisting of successive deep trench compartments combined with technical requirement of a water treatment facility and a design still often in a modern-day water treatment plants, by including a settling basin, retention basin, and purification system. So these people had water treatment facilities back then. And again, going back to the Central American and Native one, if you remember when we read that article, they said they also had water purification facilities, and that their water purification techniques had not changed since we have the same ones today than we did back then. Together, the Gasir El Madir and Drymote's inner south section work as a unified hydraulic system that improves water quality and regulates flow for practical purposes and human needs. The team believes the water available in the area was sufficient to meet the needs of the project. And on this one is physics.org. Scientists solve mystery of DNA damage detection and repair caused by sunlight, alcohol, and pollution.